Hi guys, this is Klazart with Moletrap and Diggity here, and this isn't a triple commentary, it's a triple analysis, and we are going to be talking about, just having a brief chat about the upcoming GOM TV MSL Season 4 Round of 16 brackets that have been just released a couple of days ago. So first impressions guys from Moletrap, and first of all from Moletrap, what are your first impressions?
My first impression is, wow, Jaedong versus Luxury. That's going to be absolutely insane because they're both basically number 1 and number 2 at Zerg versus Zerg, so it's going to be pretty silly. I also noticed the right side of the bracket is pretty heavy, and the left side of the bracket relatively light. No pun intended, since light is on the left side of the bracket.
Aha, clever. I gotta agree with you. Especially about the right side of the bracket. So many Terran versus Terran matchups. Although I'm glad we'll get them out of the way earlier rather than in the round of 8. And that was literally my first impression when I saw the bracket was, wow, look at all those Terrans on one side. What about you, Diggity? What would be your first impressions?
Well, yeah, first of all, Jaedong versus Luxury, that's just going to be an awesome matchup. Basically, all the matches on the right side, except for Shine versus Mind, that one I'm just kind of tossing. I'm not a big fan of Shine just because he is a defensive Terran player. And I guess it's a personal thing about commentary in general. I just don't like watching defensive Terran players. But anytime Nada, I think that's going to be a fun match. Flash Huation, I'm really excited about that one as well. The opposite side of the bracket, I really think the two standouts are actually C and Light at the top. Quanro to a degree, but really, I'm not gonna sell out on him. I really like him. I love watching him play. I think he's the favorite player as far as just watching goes. But I think he over dedicates at times, and his macro lacks a little bit. But yeah, across that bracket also looks interesting. Up Magic in July, it's kind of the fight of the inconsistents, I think. So that could be an interesting grouping right there. But yeah, generally all these players though, all of them can give us a really fun set to watch. Except for maybe Jang B and Shine. But all the rest I would just be happy to see in a set any day.
Okay, that was a pretty detailed first impression. I don't think we actually need to go over the brackets anymore. Just
Fair
kidding.
enough. What are your impressions?
Sorry.
What was your first impression then, class?
Yeah, as I said, just the fact that we've got so many Terrans on one side of the map and so many Terran versus Terran matchups. On the one hand, I'm glad that we have all these Terran versus Terrans now because it reduces the chance of having them later. But on the other hand, I think it would have been Jaedong versus Luxury is a real killer because it would have been nice to see those guys have a chance. Both of them to have a chance to progress through at least to maybe the semi-final stage, if not the finals. Obviously, that would have been impossible. But anyway. But yeah, on that note, what do you guys think of the race balance here? Because you've got 8 Terrans, 5 Zergs, and only 3 Protoss. So the Terrans are really staking a claim here, Moletrap.
Yeah, I kind of noticed that also. I think it's the Protoss' fault. I mean, Bisu and Stork, basically 2 of the major Protoss that you would think would be in this, both got out. Stork didn't even qualify, and Bisu getting out in the round of 32. So it's interesting that none of the favored Protoss are in this. It's not likely a Protoss will win this, in my opinion. Although some people think Anytime has a shot at it. I think he has a shot if someone snipes Jaedong or something. I don't know. He's got a shot here and there, but yeah, and that's why I was disappointed to see Jaedong versus Luxury actually, is because so few. Well, not too few, but it'll be disappointing to have at least one Zerg basically get out, especially when 1 or 2 might also get out from their other matches. So, but yeah, like you said earlier, it'll be good at least a few TVTs in the round of 16 means that the round of 8, it's almost impossible to have a TVT in round of 8.
Yeah, coming back to Diggity with the same question, why are the Terrans so dominant in this round of 16 here for some reason? We haven't seen a Terran, I suppose Mind won it last season, but we haven't seen a Terran win an OSL for 3 seasons, and yet we've got 8 Terrans in the round of 16 of the MSL. What's different here, Diggity?
I think it's just the quality of Terrans in this grouping. I mean, C I know people underestimate him, but really he's just been a really dominant player in Pro League. He's definitely choked when it's come to tournaments across the board. But these are all pretty high-class Terran players, except for maybe Shine, in my opinion. But yeah, they did a really fantastic job in the round of 32. Maybe it's map balance. I'm not sure. I'd have to go over the kind of the individual groupings. Obviously, in the round of 32, it just kind of ended up this way. But I can't say any of these Terrans didn't deserve to be here. They're all, like, when I think of the top 8 Terran, this is, aside from Shine, this is pretty much it. I don't see any top 8 or top Terran that I think should be here that aren't. Mind, obviously, the previous winner, Nada. I love Nada. I hope he goes deep, although I'm not expecting it. Huashin, he looks fantastic. Last season, not as much this season. Flash, who's just been playing dominantly lately. Light, again, trying to prove himself. C, dominant Pro League. Up Magic, in a bit of a slump, but before that was super creative. But yeah, across the board, I'm glad there's not going to be. We're getting the Terran versus Terran out of the way, and that we're going to see some cool race matchups. Otherwise, we're going to see a lot of Protoss versus Zerg, which I really enjoy, and anytime Nada. Yeah, I think that's just going to be a really fun match.
Yeah, I have to say, for me, Zerg versus anybody tends to be good. I mean, obviously not Zerg versus Zerg, but I find Zerg versus Protoss and Zerg versus Terran as the most exciting matchups in general. I don't find Protoss versus Terran as exciting usually. But that being said, I'm going to jump in with the brackets here, but before I do that, I want very briefly, maybe in one line or less from you guys, which is your favorite matchup for this round of 16? Moletrap, first of all. Moletrap, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just thinking about it. My favorite matchup, I think Up Magic July is going to be the most entertaining.
Okay, and same question to Diggity.
I still got to go with the implications out of Jaedong Luxury. I'm just excited about that matchup.
Okay, despite it being Zerg versus Zerg, for me personally, I'm going to go with the veterans, with the geriatrics. It has to be Nada and anytime, because just the potential there. I think the potential is there for something epic, and I just wish it was BO5 and not a BO3. Go ahead, Moletrap, sorry.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be interesting, especially surrounding the controversy of kind of their past. I don't remember the details off the top of my head, unfortunately. I'll look them up. But basically, I read somewhere that Nada stole someone stole a Star League from Anytime, I think, or something like that. I'm totally talking out of my butt now. I'll look it up. Hold on.
I'm not sure. I think it might.
But there's some history there.
Absolutely, sorry, go ahead, Diggity.
I think it might have been the setup where Garimto stole. I think Anytime was in the mix there, and he lost the championship, and the Golden Mouse was taken from Boxer as a result of some mix-up in there. Yeah, I remember briefly going over it, but honestly, that was during a time period. I haven't gone back and watched those archives yet, so. Yeah,
that is one of the remarkable things about this bracket, about this MSL, is there's no big rivalry. Usually, you're looking to a final between Bisu and Savior, or Bisu and Stork, and with those guys, or Boxer and Yellow, with those guys now out of the picture. Is there really a big rivalry? I mean, I suppose Anytime versus Nada is as close as you would get to it, but is there anyone any matchup in this bracket that you guys would say is a huge rivalry? Diggity?
I would say Quanro Light. That's if they end up advancing, I think that could be a big. And also if Quanro advances against C, because Quanro went through both C and Light last MSL, and didn't absolutely bowl C over. It was an intense game, but definitely pounded Light into the ground. It was obvious that Light was not prepared to face Quanro. It kind of underestimated him. So I think that's an opportunity. Although I wouldn't call it a rivalry, I would call it more an opportunity for redemption. Actually, I guess what would be more remarkable about this is it seems like there's the Young Bucks it's kind of like the up-and-coming Young Bucks and the mid-range and also the old vets across the board. So you've got July, the old vet Zerg, and Nada, the old vet Terran, and then kind of the mid-range Young Buck of like Quashin, C, and Light, although kind of little variance there. And then you have the Young Buck Protoss, Cal, the old Protoss, Anytime, kind of bringing up that side. Jangbi, there's obviously too few Protoss to go with that, but then you have like the up-and-coming young Quanro and the mid-range established Jaedong along the side there too. So maybe that's kind of the more of the story to tell here, is who's going to emerge and who can have that lasting power. But as far as just straight rivalry, it's that Quanro bracket right there in that corner. Otherwise, I don't think these guys really have anything against each other.
Right, absolutely, and I think it's a good thing to remark. mean, it does look like there's a wind of change blowing through the StarCraft Pro scene. Certainly, a lot of the guys you see now are players who would have been rumored in the past to have come up and really dominated. Players like C, who was supposed to be the next big Terran player. Then it was Light. Huaxin showed some promise as well. Huixin, sorry, showed some promise as well. Nada, obviously, you know, and then we've got a couple of, as you said, a couple of returning vets in July and Nada in any time. And then you've got these mid-range players who've never really proven themselves, like Up Magic or Shine or Jiang Bi. Or even Luxury, and then you've got obviously the up and coming youngsters such as Orion and Quanro and Flash who are the exciting prospects at the moment. But I'll come back to Moletrap with the same question that I asked Diggity. Do you feel there's a massive personal rivalry between any of the two players? I mean, I know Diggity pointed out a few interesting things, but it doesn't seem to be on the same kind of rivalry as Savior versus Bisu, the kind of intense feeling and excitement you got from a matchup between those two guys.
No, you're right. I don't think there's anything quite on that level. I did look it up, and it was right before I started watching StarCraft, really, so that's why I kind of didn't remember it. And it was, oh crap, no, I'd lost the page. Hold on a second. But, yeah, Nada took the Shinhan 2 OSL 3-2 over Anytime, and it was basically like everyone thought it was Anytime's OSL, and Nada took it from him in Game 5. And so there's to a lot of old watchers, there's definitely going to be some feelings there because there are still some Anytime fans around who have been wanting him to do well ever since then, and he's never quite managed to make it that far since then. And so some Anytime fans are feeling like, oh, Nada stole it, and now Nada's a little out of shape and Anytime's doing well, so it's his time for some revenge. I think that's probably the closest thing to any kind of rivalry, I guess, that you could say.
Yeah, it does take a little bit of the excitement of it, but I think the quality of StarCraft on show will probably more than make up for that. So let's jump right into the brackets after our extensive pre-bracket chat. So we'll start off with C versus Light, and your thoughts on that, Diggity.
C versus Light. Wow. This, I'm going to say the question is when does C choke? I mean, that's been kind of the story of all of his tournaments is that he goes in, he's looking awesome, he dominates Pro League, then he gets into the tournament and dumps out way sooner than he should because he ends up choking somewhere along the line. And I'm tempted to take Light in this, even though I think C is the better player, just because I wonder which C is going to show up. I definitely think this is going to be a tough fight either way, because I don't think that the gap in talent between these two is that large. I do think C's the better player, but I think Light can give him a run for his money. So I'm going to take Light just on calling kind of a C, a Destructo C. I would like to see C actually go to the round of 4 and maybe even go to the finals. I know, like Moletrap said, they were expecting, a lot of people are expecting to see a C Jaedong showdown. I would really like to see that, honestly. But yeah, I'm going to take Light early.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you that just C's record in these big competitions isn't there. It just isn't there. He looks like a good player, and then he crashes out inexplicably. Last time I saw him, it was going down to Go Rush, and he just seems to do it again and again. And as I would say, dull as Light is, he does seem to be more consistent in the big matchups, and I think he's been there more often than C has. Would you go along with what we feel about this Moletrap, or do you feel that C is got the upper hand?
I'm gonna go with C. I think. It's hard to say because he does kind of randomly choke a lot, and that's why we haven't seen him in the past Star Leagues. But I don't know. He's just been playing way too well lately. Light definitely has a chance. In his what was that OSL group last season? He looked really good. Basically, he 3-0'd his group, and he looked really good against 2 of the better Terrans at the time, Iris and Huaxin. So his Terran versus Terran is definitely up there. But, yeah, I'm going to have to give it to C just because I don't know. Maybe I'm underestimating his choking ability, but it just seems like the way he's been playing lately, he can't lose.
Okay, so that looks like an interesting matchup anyway. So I'm going to come back to Moletrap now, and Quanro versus Cal, and your thoughts on that, Moletrap.
I love Quanro. I love him a lot. He is a crackling in human form, but Cal is basically, he's statistically the second best Protoss versus Zerg right now. He's been playing really well. He beat Savior, and Quanro has inconsistent Zerg versus Protoss. He plays like it's versus Terran and gets him killed as soon as an Archon shows up. So I think Cal's just too smart to get caught off guard by Quanro's craziness. I'm going with Cal 2-0.
Right. I gotta say, I am very excited about Quanro, but I do have a bad feeling about him because so many times I've seen him intensely microing and leaving his drones just sitting there in his base, and I think he's highly vulnerable to any Protoss player who analyzes that and decides to drop a few High Templar, because I think he wouldn't have the micro to move his drones out in time. What about you, Diggity? Would you agree with our thoughts on Quanro and Cal?
I definitely agree that Quanro tends to overextend himself and ends up losing matches, and I definitely think Cal will. He's a smart player, and I do think he's going to be prepared for Quanro, but just the first two maps I'm looking at, Blue Storm and then Katrina, I can definitely see Quanro taking it. Simply because Blue Storm, a small map, the one that definitely favors aggressive Zerg players, I could definitely see him taking that map, and then immediately after doing something crazy with Mutalisks, kind of like we saw Jaedong do against Stork on Katrina, which is basically to win as Zerg on Katrina. I feel like you do have to have that kind of crazy aggressive style, which I think Quanro does have. So I think he really, I'm not going to say definitively I have no confidence in this, but I do think Quanro could take 2 games out early. I think if it goes, if it's 1-1, I think Cal will take it. But if Quanro can sneak a win out on Katrina, which with some sort of crazy Mutalisk micro, I think he might take it.
Right. I think definitely the Achilles heel for Zerg on Katrina is overextending themselves, and I think Quanro will have to be careful in that regard. But his willingness to go with kind of 2 hatchery builds and things like that, I think definitely, I think Cal is going to have to play well to overcome that. But yeah, I mean, it is a little bit of a toss-up, though I'd have to side with Moletrap's opinion that Cal is more likely to come out on top. So, Jangbi versus Orion, Diggity, and your thoughts on that bracket, on that particular matchup?
This is easy. I definitely am going to go with Orion over Jangbi. Jangbi's terrible versus Protoss, and Orion's very strong against Protoss. And Orion, obviously a very nervous player. He's not fantastic in micro, but has a very good strategic head, which is actually in his play, I was glad he played well. I called it. Yeah, he made it. But he played exactly like I expected him to. He played exactly like I expected him to. Yeah. He played strategically and not fantastic micro, but when you let him macro and play in his game, he's a very dangerous player. And I think as he gets rid of that nervous tension and as his micro improves over time, I think he will be a more dangerous player. I don't think he's going to be like a savior or maybe even take down tournaments, but I think he will be a solid player for Pro League. But definitely I'm going to call him 100%, probably even 2 over Jangbi, because Jangbi's just awful versus Zerg. And I think Orion's just clever, and I think he's working himself out here. Of course, after this, I think he's screwed.
Right, and the first 2 maps are Blue Storm and Zodiac. Blue Storm would definitely suit him. I'm not so much so sure about Zodiac. But Orion is, I mean, yes, we know Jangbi's not great versus Zerg. We know that he's got a terrible record, and we do expect Orion to take this. But Orion is prone to making a lot of mistakes, and a player on their day could capitalize on that Moletrap. So I mean, do you have as much confidence in his ability to progress through this matchup as Diggity does?
I don't know. Orion looked very, very sloppy in his games the other day. He made mistakes. My favorite mistake was that he did this fat drop, this huge drop. Well, not huge, but he did a drop with Lurkers and Hydralisks. And he forgot to burrow his Lurkers. And he didn't just do that once. He forgot to burrow his Lurkers several times. One time he just ran 4 or 5 Lurkers through freeze forces and didn't burrow them until 4 of them were dead. And it's just way too sloppy. Jangbi isn't that good, but he's not sloppy. He plays pretty cleanly. So I'm going to give it to Jangbi, honestly. And I don't know, it could go either way depending on if Orion can step his game up. Just for the record, by the way, these two have met before. They played 2 games in NBC Survivor at the beginning of 07, and Jangbi won both of them.
That's a great stat, Moletrap. I have to say that's a great stat. And so we've got a difference of opinion on this matchup. Actually, you guys seem to have a difference of opinion in most of the brackets so far. So I'm looking forward to see whose predictions are going to come more true than not. I'm firmly on the fence here. Anyway, so I'm coming back to you, Moletrap, now with Up Magic and July. And this is one of the games I'm looking forward to because I am a huge July fan. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, Moletrap.
Yeah, crap. Hold on. My alarm went off. Wake up, Moletrap. this one, whoever wins, I'm going to be sad for the loser because I've recently gained a strong appreciation for Up Magic. I like him a lot. He's just damn cool. He plays creatively, and that's something that not a lot of StarCraft players do. And he pulls it off pretty well as well. So I'm kind of rooting for him, but at the same time, also again July, I'm rooting for him as well because when he's on, he is magnificent to watch. So whichever way it goes, I'll be both happy and sad. But as far as calling it, I'm going to go with July because historically, even though I think Up Magic looked really good against Jaedong last season, I don't call it a 3-0 loss. I call it a 3 to 2.7 because he almost pulled off every one of his 3 crazy builds, but didn't quite. But just historically, his Zerg sucks. So July's been playing well lately. He's in both Star Leagues, so I'm going to give him the momentum.
Yeah, Sumo Zerg is back on the rise, and I've got to say, yeah, both look. It looks like the this might be very well be the most exciting matchup, the most exciting bracket in the group, considering both players' innovative style of play. But I've got to be very biased here and go strongly with July myself, because I am a huge fan of his. So I'm that obviously taints my vision. What about you, Diggity? I mean, are you in agreement with Moletrap on this one that July is the clear frontrunner?
Yeah, I definitely have to go with July on this. I think Up Magic might be able to steal the first game simply because when I've seen July lose games recently, it's been he just isn't protecting his tech, and I think that's been his weakness as of late over the past, 20 games. When he loses big, he loses his Hive, he loses his Defiler Mound. He just seems to have a weakness for protecting his upper level Zerg tech, and that's like Rule 3 of Zerg. I won't get into Rule 1 or 2 at the moment. But Up Magic, yeah, really creative. Yeah. Up Magic, really creative, but yeah, classically not very good against. I mean, granted, he's been losing against top level Zerg, but I consider July a top level Zerg at the moment. Unless July really just doesn't show up, which I guess he's been prone to do in the past. I just can't see Up Magic getting out of this bracket. I'm definitely going to take July, if not 2-0, then definitely strong 2 victories, whichever the victories are.
Okay, right. So well, moving on to now the right side of the bracket, and I'm going to start at the bottom this time. I'm going to keep you guys waiting for a match I know you both want to discuss. I'm going to keep you waiting till the very end. So Shine versus Mind. This really should be pretty straightforward for Mind, shouldn't it, Diggity? I mean, the reigning MSL champion, we expect him to waltz through this, don't we?
Well, Shine is I read some interviews where Shine was talking about like, oh yeah, I want to be more aggressive and things like that, but I just haven't seen it. He's been an entirely defensive Terran. I mean, just sort of like Kiri, where he just refuses to attack his opponent. And Mind, from what I've seen versus Terran, he specializes in breaking defensive Terrans. He's very, very good with his. Well, first of all, he has blazing macro management. He really shifts from mid game to late game very quickly, and then on top of that, he's very good with his units in the late game, which is what I think definitely carried him in the last season over Mania. And really, yeah, I just can't see Shine winning this because Mind is just so good at breaking down defensive Terrans. And yeah, and I just think his macro and honestly his micro, everything, I give Mind basically the better. He's better in all the categories as far as this matchup is concerned. So I'd be very surprised if he loses.
Yeah, again, I have to agree. Mine looks like a shoe-in for this Moletrap. But what about Shine? I mean, defensive players generally don't tend to get very far in Pro StarCraft because you surrender the initiative to your opponent. You let them, you play to their game plan, and you kind of basically give them free reign of the map. So, how has this guy made it this far? I mean, does he expect to get through the reigning champion, in your opinion? I
have no damn clue how he's made it this far, honestly. I saw him go through, I was like, wait, what? What? I wasn't, yeah. It's interesting also to note, going back, pulling out some more fun statistics, the last MSL, Mind took Shine out in the round of 32. Mind beat him in the first match and then in the final match. So, as far as their background goes, Shine doesn't seem to stand a chance. I mean, Mind's just been playing too well lately, and Shine is Terran versus Terran is incidentally his best matchup, but he's been really inconsistent with it lately. Been losing a lot lately to some relatively good players, but still losing a lot lately.
Right. Well, I guess if you're a betting man, this would be the most clear matchup to be betting on. Look, certainly does seem, from everything we can tell, to be a foregone conclusion. But StarCraft has a way of being surprising.
Yeah.
Now we're going to come to Anytime versus Nada, which is the closest thing we've got to a rivalry in this round of 16. And I'm going to come to Moletrap first with this one. Anytime is playing great right now, but Nada is showing flashes of brilliance. But Protoss versus Terran, I don't know if that's his strongest matchup. I mean, how do you feel about this game, Moletrap?
I am probably gonna slip my wrists when Anytime beats Nada. I I agree. I think Nada has been showing. Don't worry, not really. Nada's been showing some good stuff lately, but I just don't think it's quite enough lately. Nada obviously is capable. I mean, if Nada were to bring his A game or his S game or whatever you want to call it to the matchup, he would own Anytime, I think. But he just has been really inconsistent for the last year or so, and Anytime has just been stomping all over everyone in his path for the last few months. Although there is the fabled Anytime fall curse where he plays well during the fall and then sucks it, and it's winter now, so we'll see what happens there, I guess. I'm gonna give the match to Anytime though, as far as calling it. It'll be fun either way.
We've got more kind of color theory type theories coming up here from Moletrap. But I've got to say, Nada's problem this season has been his consistency, definitely. And though he has, I mean, I want to ask Diggity two questions about this match. First of all, do you agree with Moletrap that Nada's S game is superior to Anytime's? Nada at the top of his game is superior to Anytime at the top of his game? And secondly, whether Nada has shown a few flashes of brilliance, are they going to be enough for him?
If Nada can pull some of that old Tornado Terran magic where he's just pumping vultures and tanks, because I remember watching him against Protoss players where he would just have a consistent vulture harass. There was no point in the match where he did not have vultures attacking his Protoss opponent, when tanks all over, just dropping alongside all over the place. And then, and it was consistent, and it was all the way to the end, all the way till he was basically pumping from 9 factories, and his opponent just consistently assailed them, and just mentally dominated them. And honestly, if he can pull something like that, I think he could. Yeah, if he brought his S game, I think he can beat Anytime. But I just don't see it happening, honestly. I think Anytime's just playing really well, and I haven't seen that from Nada recently. Maybe if he just goes directly to dropship, like a single dropship, single factory, and just gets a bunch of vultures out, I don't know, as rapidly as possible, and puts them in the back of Anytime's base, and Anytime, for whatever reason, because he's being psychotic, doesn't get out a Reaver harass, maybe then, but maybe on Katrina, because Anytime will probably fast expand. But aside from that, yeah, I just don't see it happening.
Nada has won his last 5 games versus Protoss, and the 6th was Anytime beating him in the Pro League in October.
Wow. So that's interesting to say the least. The other thing I want to quickly touch on with this bracket before we move to the next one is the first game being on Katrina. We know what a stronghold that is for Protoss. Nada's going to have to do something special, Diggity, here to pull out the win.
Definitely. Like I've been saying, I'm really expecting the next series of Protoss versus Terran matches to simply be the Terran opponent going 2 factories, just because so many Protoss opponents have simply been going straight Nexus. Now, if he decides to go 2 factory, the way Anytime's been playing recently, I'm not sure that, first of all, I think he's going to scout it out, but second of all, I don't know that Nada's going to be successful bowling him over, even if he does manage to get a successful 2 factory push going. Just because Anytime's just been looking fantastic, honestly. So, yeah, I'm not sure that he can get out of Katrina alive. It's going to take something special from Nada, in my opinion.
Yeah, Moletrap, what about you? Do you think Katrina is a done deal for Anytime?
I think it will just come down to gameplay style. I think Katrina has been a Terran nightmare versus Protoss just because of the playstyle, and I think if Nada does do something quicker and doesn't let the long game of the Protoss getting a quick expansion play into things, he might be able to take it.
Yeah. One last comment.
Don't get me wrong, by the way. I'm not counting Nada out. I'm betting on Anytime, but I'm really hoping Nada gets it, and I think he does have a chance. Yeah,
going into that 2 factory comment, a lot of people have been commenting the the core issue with Katrina is the fact it's so difficult to do a good solid push or any sort of contain, just because of the way the map's set up. Because you have that kind of that long ridge where you can do a lot of things basically, and it's really hard for Terran to get a good push and a good seal. And so even if he does go 2-factor, yeah, it's going to be really hard. Yeah, I'm hoping he does something creative. What I'm really hoping to see is Nada go dropship very quickly and just straight to it and not even worry about defense and just get some